Hey folks, it's good to see you again. Welcome to our second video. We've got some really cool stuff to talk about today. The fascinating topic that we're going to be diving headfirst into pertains to the Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution. We want to learn a little bit more about how this seemingly banal constitutional provision has had such a profound impact on multicultural inclusion as we know it today. And in order to understand that, we have to learn about how it's impacted desegregation. And finally, to gain a full, well-rounded understanding of the Commerce Clause, we want to know exactly how it works, some of the court cases that it's applied to, and its impact on ethics. So without further ado, let's get started. So you might be asking yourself, what exactly is it and why does it pertain to ethics and multiculturalism? Alright, well, let's review the basics. In the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3 grants the Congress to have power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. Okay, so I'm sure that still does not answer the question of how this relates to multicultural inclusion and desegregation. Well, let me explain. In the 1960s, one of the primary objectives of the Kennedy administration was to eventually desegregate the South. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen events, the Kennedy administration was eventually switched over and transitioned to the LBJ administration. One of the tasks of the LBJ administration was to carry on the legacy of the Kennedy administration by attempting to corral the federal government to desegregate the South through whatever means possible. And one of the ways that they accomplished this was through the usage of the constitutional provision of the Commerce Clause. In the 1960s, a man by the name of Ollie McClung owned a barbecue restaurant in the Deep South. Now, what appeared to be on the surface as a simple business organization was actually a place where segregation was occurring constantly, as Ollie would often have his black customers take their food and go, whereas he would let his white customers eat inside the restaurant. Talk about privilege. Now, because businesses are not identified as a part of the state, they are in fact a private organization, the 14th Amendment does not apply to private organizations. Through using some fascinating legal gymnastics, the Congress eventually passed the 1964 Civil Rights Bill by utilizing the Commerce Clause. The landmark passing of the Civil Rights Act eventually gave all Americans the right to be served at facilities which are open to the public, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, etc. Now, eventually, Ollie McClung contested this verdict by stating that his restaurant had nothing to do with interstate commerce, therefore Congress had no right whatsoever to intervene in his business. Eventually, the case went all the way to the Supreme Court in the now infamous case known as the Katzenbach versus McClung, in which the court ruled that McClung could be prevented from discriminating against African Americans through the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now, the fascinating part was that the court reasoned that discrimination in restaurants posed significant burdens on, quote, the interstate flow of food and upon the movement on products generally, unquote. Because after all, no restaurant is an island, and they depend upon interstate commerce. And that about wraps it up. Hopefully that explains a little bit about why those important and famous 16 words of the Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution has had such an impact upon ethics and multiculturalism as we know it today.